Think you've said write for emotion, not for gimmicks?
Yeah, I think that I think sometimes writers, particularly when writers are starting from concepts and not really delving into the reason why people show up, which is the character. You know, characters are motivated by their emotions, right? So when you are writing and you're writing from just plot, it's less engaging than if you're writing from character. Well, what is this character going to do? Why would they want to do this? What's the reason? You know, who are the stakes that they're doing it for? When you've got those things and you're working from the inside out, it's a lot more emotional. It's a lot, I will connect to your material a lot more. We will all feel something when, you know, when you're writing from the inside out as opposed to the outside in. And you could start with the outside. Obviously you need something, you know, a plot to hang it on. But if you're not doing the work underneath it, if you're just giving, you know, cool fight scenes and you're not really delving into, well, why is there a fight scene? Then you're going to lose your audience for sure.
So let's say if I'm doing a coming of age drama of some woman that's hanging out at Venice Beach all the time and she's kind of floundering and she's doesn't know if she's going to go to college, doesn't know if she can even afford to go. But it's a cool gimmick and we can have cool skateboarders and all these interesting characters around her. But I'm not getting to really her story. It's too flat.
Well, I think you have to get underneath the character and figure out, well, what is she really motivated? What does she want to do? What's her goal? Because you don't want a passive character who's just sitting on the beach. You want someone who wants to do something. So what is that something? And then why does she want to do that thing? So if you have to, you know, writing is really unearthing so much of, you know, you have to get underneath everything in order to have something that really resonates. And that's the hard part. That's the hard work that sometimes writers don't want to do. It's scary because it's, you know, you have to tap into your own stuff. And when you tap into your own stuff, then you can, you know, then you can share it with somebody else and they can tap into theirs. And isn't that really why we're doing all this anyway? We're sharing emotions. Otherwise, who cares, right?
Who was the first character that you felt a connection with?
Oh my goodness. A television character?
Film, television, in a book? Where you really felt like you were in that person's skin. You knew that world, you knew who they were.
Wow, I don't even know. I don't even know if I could rewind the tapes to tell you where that first person was. Although I will tell you, there may have been, this is going to sound really weird, but it's a children's book. One of my very favorite children's books was a book, and I don't think it's in print anymore. It's called Anne Likes Red. Red, 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 a blue dress, Anne. No, I like red, 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 red. I read it so much. And I don't know if that was because I think it might have been because there was so much of me in that. I loved Red, but I also just loved her determination, that she was really focused, that there was just this sense of this young girl. And I must have been in grade school, if not even before. It's probably, you know, preschool book where I memorized every single line of that book. You know what I do know what it was. I do know what it was that just sparked something. So there was another book at around the same time when I was really young. And again, I don't know if I could even tell you the name of it. But it was a book about a young girl who had all of these dolls, and they were all of all different colors from all different countries. And she wanted a doll that looked just like her. And I think at the very end, the doll maker made her a doll that looked exactly like her. Now, she happened to be a little blonde girl. But the fact that this book had dolls that looked like me, there were all sorts of beautiful dolls in different clothing from different countries. And again, that was something that I think for me was like, yeah, there's difference. And I'm one of the different ones. I'm one of the other ones. And wouldn't I love a doll that looked like me? And I identified with the girl, but I also identified with all those other dolls because I looked like that. So yeah, that's a really interesting little piece of like something that you just unearthed there. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to find that book. I think I do know that I still have that book. I own that book someplace, and I'll have to figure that out.
Very cool. Huh. I don't know why. I was just, thinking. I know, because Cost Plus World Market, they would have these different little very international. And I
Yeah.
always liked going there too, because it wasn't, I had a Barbie and a Skipper and all
Right,
that. But
right.
it was just like, just the same thing every time.
Yes.
Perfectly straight hair, which I couldn't have, so.
Right. Yeah, I think there was that whole, I had a lot of Madame Alexander dolls. And I had a lot of different colors and, different dresses. And yeah, that was a great book. I wonder if there's a movie in that book. I bet there's a movie in that book.
Oh, okay. There you go. Adaptation. Why do you say the best ideas are personal?
Okay, so I'll say this for and maybe let's see if we can come at it for a couple of different ways. So, it's obviously difficult to write a screenplay or to write a pilot, right? It's a hard thing to do. If everybody did it, there'd be a gajillion of them. They were just amazing. It's hard to do. But again, as we talked about connecting and being able to understand those characters, you really need to get underneath all of the trappings of this is a really cool story to get to the why of it all and the emotion. Because again, that's what's gonna make you want to lean forward. It's gonna make you want to come see it again. It's gonna make you want to show up week to week, right? As if you know and understand and you love these characters. Or I should say, at least understand these characters, because you may not love some of these anti-hero characters, but you can understand them. And what do we all have that's different from somebody else? It's our own personal experiences. So I can't write your story. You can't write my story. So that's what makes us special. So if we're going to be able to dredge up as writers, our whole goal is to dredge up all of that stuff and to convey it in a way that's going to connect us. And for you to feel what I feel, you need to be able to tap into all of that. Well, what's the best story? It's the one that you have, that you own. So I do think that when I was running the Access program for HBO, we always looked for writers who could access that really quickly. People who were willing and already there at a place where all of their personal stuff was just at the surface, where you didn't have to go through a therapy session for them to unload all of their stuff, because that stuff is the stuff that makes a script really resonate. And you can tell when someone is really willing to go there. Otherwise, everything is very cute, plotty, surfacey, but it's not really moving. So I do think that there's an important piece of this, which is use the stuff that you have, which is, all of you, and put that on the page. And then you can place that, whatever that little ball of stuff is, in any situation you want. So it doesn't have to be that you're, writing specifically about your life. It doesn't have to be an autobiography, but it should, that kernel of that idea in the center of it should be transferable to a story no matter where it takes place. And it's the more truthful you are, the more authentic you are in your writing, the better you're writing. I know for a fact when I write, if I'm not being truthful, and I have to go back and then go another layer and go, okay, how do I really tap into this character? And I have to do the work, because, and I think you can feel it. People can feel it when you are being really truthful and when you're not being truthful, when you're doing it for cutesy sake versus you're doing it because you're, as I call it, opening a vein onto a page.
Have you ever had to tell a writer that? Like, maybe not in those exact words, but I feel like you're holding something back, or maybe we need to go another layer?
Somebody just said that to me recently. They said, I think you can go deeper. And I went, oh, I was caught. And I went, yeah, I know. But it was a hard thing to do. And so this was a script. I actually just turned it in to my manager recently. And he was the one who gave me the note. And he said, so you could do it a little better. And the story was very much about me in college. So it's a horror sci-fi. There's like some really cool stuff that happens in it, but the character at the center was me in college, and he knew and I knew that I had not done the work. I had done most of the work. I hadn't done all of the work that I could have done. And I went back and I rewrote the entire script, and even throughout the entire storyline, I went in and I went, okay, I was writing and I did a lot of A story, but I hadn't really done the B stories. I hadn't really fleshed out the other characters. I was quick to get to the finish line. And when I went back and I tore the whole thing apart and then put it back together again, and then went back to the original story, but I had to do some of that work in order to figure out who everybody else was in this world. It was, I'm going to say 1,000 times better. He was absolutely right. I needed to do the work. And I hadn't wanted to do the work. And I thought, well, I could get by on a cute little slick idea. But I thought I thought I had done some of it, but I hadn't done all of it. So it does work. And yeah, you have to give those notes all the time. And I think that how you give that note, though, is just as important as the note itself. And sometimes a good coaxing or a good question, hey, what were you trying to get to here? Or what's the theme as you see it? And what's the big question that you're trying to answer? And, how do we help you get there? Sometimes those can be a lot better than, hey, this wasn't great. Or, you can, if you pose it in the, Jeopardy way of asking a question, then sometimes those answers come organically to the writer.
Sure. What would Alex Trebek say? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But do you think you were doing it in too much of a cutesy way?
No, I acknowledged to myself that, like I said, I had done some of the work. I had done quite a bit of the work. What I hadn't done was the hardest part of the work, which is when you go a layer deeper. And I think the part of it that was the light bulb that went on for me was that I hadn't written her emotions. I had written what she was doing and why she was doing it. I had the stakes in there. I had everything else. I hadn't gone back and done the work of tapping into what I was feeling at the time and why the story was important and what was the thing that was driving me to write it. Why, beyond the idea, was it important to me? It's a story that I had actually written a draft of this in 2009. So it's something that I kept holding on to. And I realized that there are themes in it that were really important to me that I keep coming back to in other work. And so I knew I had to finally do the work and go, okay, this is really me. It's the setting was Vassar. Everything about it was every single building in it was a sensory, memory coming back to me. And the fear was, well, what if I expose too much of myself? And so I had to let go of that fear and go, okay, let me expose how I was feeling and why I was doing what I was doing and what was that journey that I was on and why was that so important. And that was the key, I think. And when you can do that in your work, when you can really pull back the layers on your own journey and try to ask your questions of, well, why was that important? Well, why was that important? Well, what touched a nerve there? And why did you feel so alone at that moment? And what was the tension that you were feeling with those people at the time? And really get underneath that. That's when things start to really pop.